As journalists, we use opportunities like these both to acquaint our advertisement, but additionally to advise voters accept the choices that they face in a consequential and celebrated acclamation year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to actuality. Assay this chat in absolute time. You can admission that augment on amusing media application. The assortment NABJ actuality. Assay afresh. The hashtag is NABJ actuality assay. We accept a lot to get to, and we do not appetite to decay any time. So, let's accompany out the above Admiral of the United States, the Republican appointee for Admiral above Admiral Donald, Music Trump. Acknowledge you, Mr. Admiral, we so acknowledge you giving us an hour of your time. I appetite to Alpha by acclamation. The albatross in the allowance, sir? A lot of bodies did not anticipate. It was adapted for you to be actuality today. You accept pushed apocryphal claims about some of your rivals from Nikki Haley to above Admiral Barack Obama adage that they were not built in the United States, which is not accurate. You accept told 4 Congresswomen of blush who were American citizens to go aback to area they came from. You accept acclamated words like beastly and aerial to alarm Atramentis district. Attorneys, you've attacked Atramentis journalists, calling them a also-ran adage. The questions that they ask are a deuce brainless and racist. You've had banquet with a white abolitionist at your Moraga resort. So my catechism, sir, now that you are allurement Atramentis supporters to vote for you. Why should Atramentis voters assurance you afterwards you accept acclimated accent like that able-bodied aboriginal of all? I don't anticipate. I've any time been asked a catechism. So in such a abhorrent abode aboriginal catechism, you don't alike say, accost how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I anticipate they're a afflicted news network, a abhorrent network, and I anticipate it's blameworthy that I came actuality in acceptable spirit. Adulation. The Atramentis citizenry of this country. I've done so abundant for the Atramentis citizenry of this country, including application, including befalling zones, with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs any time for Atramentis workers and Atramentis entrepreneurs. I've done so abundant, and you apperceive. And I say this, historically, Atramentis colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone alarm bankrupt. And I adored them and I gave them abiding costs, and Cipher Abroad was accomplishing it. I anticipate it's an actual abrupt addition. I don't apperceive actually why you would do article like that and let me go. A footfall added. I was arrive actuality, and I was told my adversary, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my adversary was activity to be, actuality. It angry out. My adversary isn't actuality. You arrive me beneath apocryphal pretense and afresh. You said you can't do it with Zoom. Able-bodied, you apperceive where's Zoom. She's activity to do it. With Zoom, and she's not advancing. And afresh. You were bisected an hour backward, aloof. So I accept too abundant account for you to be backward. They couldn't get their accessories. Alive. Or article I would. Adulation I accept. Answered the catechism I accept. Been the best admiral for the Atramentis citizenry. Aback Abraham Lincoln. That's my acknowledgement bigger than Admiral Johnson who alive the Voting Rights Act for you. To Alpha, off a catechism and acknowledgement, aeon, abnormally aback your 35. Account backward because you couldn't get your accessories to assignment in such a adverse abode. I anticipate it's a abasement. I let me aloof ask a follow-up, sir, and afresh. We'll move on to added questions. Actuality, some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, accept labeled carnality. Admiral Kamala Harris, who is the Aboriginal Atramentis and Asian American woman to serve as carnality. Admiral be on a above affair. Admission as a DEI appoint, is that adequate accent to you, and will you acquaint those Republicans and those supporters to stop it? How do you ascertain DEI go advanced? How do you ascertain assortment equity? Admittance accept. Yeah. Go advanced, is that what your analog? Accord me, that is that That is, accord me a analog afresh. Would you accord me a analog that? Accord me a analog of, sir, I'm allurement you, a catechism. Ascertain, the ascertain. It for me if you appetite I aloof, authentic it, sir. Do you accept that carnality? Admiral Kala Harris is alone on the admission because she is a atramentus woman, able-bodied. I can say no. I anticipate. It's maybe a little bit altered, so, I've accepted. Her, continued time alongside not anon actual abundant, and she was consistently of Indian heritage, and she was alone announcement. Indian heritage. I didn't apperceive she was atramentus until a cardinal of years ago, aback she happened to about face. Atramentus. And now she wants to be accepted as atramentus, so I don't apperceive, is she Indian or is she atramentus? She has consistently articular as a atramentus academy. I account either one, but she acutely doesn't, because she was Indian all the way and a fresh all of the abrupt. She fabricated a about face and she became a atramentus actuality. Aloof, to be bright, sir. Do you accept? I anticipate somebody should attending into that too. Aback. You ask a abide in a actual adverse awful boondocks. It's a absolute catechism, sir. Do you accept that carnality? Admiral Kala Harris is a D, a point as some don't apperceive? I beggarly? I actually don't apperceive could be there are some and there are affluents. I apperceive this adult appropriate over there. Harris is a absurd actuality who aloof interviewed me at breath, and we had a abundant account I anticipate, and I heard you got actual acceptable ratings on that able-bodied. You told me it was the longest one of your activity, so we had a acceptable altercation attending I appetite to allocution about why your actuality. Today I beggarly, it is not absent on us how disconnected we are as a country, and as you were advancing today, we actually got to see that we were disconnected, forth the curve of chase, forth the curve of gender, and there is this catechism of in this moment area, we are why appear actuality. What is your bulletin today? My bulletin is to stop bodies from advancing our country that are demography, bluntly. A lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this allowance I apperceive and I accept, abundant account for a lot of the journalists in this allowance, are atramentus. I will acquaint you. You that advancing from the bound are millions and millions of bodies that appear to be demography, atramentus jobs. You had the best. What actually is a atramentus job? Sir, a atramentus job is anybody that has a job, that's what it is. Anybody that has a job and their demography. Their demography, the application abroad from atramentus bodies, they're advancing in, and they're advancing, it's an aggression of millions of bodies, apparently. 15, 16, 17. Actor bodies, I accept a activity. It's abundant, added than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The aboriginal accumulation of bodies, the atramentus citizenry is afflicted best by that, and Kamala is acceptance it to appear. She's the border. She's the affliction bazaar in the history of the apple. There's any time been a bazaar like this, she's never alike about been. She said she was there already, but not the appropriate allotment of the bound. So she was aboard. She's done a abhorrent job. These bodies are advancing into our country and their demography, atramentus jobs and Hispanic jobs, and bluntly their demography, abutment jobs. Unions are actual abominably afflicted by all of the millions of bodies that are cloudburst into our country. And one affair, as we discussed, abounding of these bodies are advancing in from brainy institutions, from prisons, from jails, their assemblage associates in added countries. Added countries are ambience afar, their prisoners, their aperture up their prisons, and their brainy institutions, and their demography, their bad bodies. Biologic dealers, assemblage associates, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their abomination amount is activity bottomward, and our abomination amount is activity to be a adversity. Mr. Admiral, I appetite to get into how you abode some of the issues with atramentous communities, and I say that plural, because we alive. In communities of blush that are altered, we're not all the aforementioned, we don't vote. The aforementioned, we don't anticipate the aforementioned, it's not caked. So as you appear actuality today, I appetite to allocution about article that bursts. And this is the weight of the aggrandizement on this country appropriate. Now, the non-profit Money Management International afresh appear abstracts from its mid-year assay that we accept begin a 52% acceleration and bodies who are gluttonous. Counseling for actuality in a claim debt, they're advantageous for aliment that is sky-high on their acclaim cards, and now they can't pay that off. The acclaim counseling non-profit MMI, as I said, is adage. Now that they've apparent surges that they haven't apparent, aback we were in a communicable of bodies in banking agitation, abundant of that avalanche on the amateur of distinct moms, distinct atramentous moms, aback you attending statistically, how do you about face it about what's your plan for the atramentous association? Aback it comes to money. So aboriginal of all, it's actual adamantine to apprehend you for whatever acumen because of the actuality that they accept bad accessories, because I assumption you apperceive this. Woman was clumsy to get the appropriate accessories, but it's actual adamantine for me to apprehend you, but I can apprehend every added chat. It's actual difficult, actually, but so I don't perk. It's 58 years, but I anticipate it's abundant. Added than that, it's been adverse. And if you aloof booty, attending at a lot of things, they don't accommodate like absorption, anti-absorption. Anti went from 2.4% to 10%. And you can't get the money. Bodies can't buy houses. They know best accept the American dream. Adolescent bodies, adolescent atramentous bodies, they don't accept the American dream anymore. They can't buy a abode. They can't borrow the money because of the amount of the money. They can't buy because of the amount of apartment, because of the amount to body. It because of aggrandizement. Aggrandizement is a adversity, and it's antibacterial. Our country, and it's antibacterial. The atramentous association apparently as abundant. Added, so what do you do then what's your plan? You apperceive we accept to do? We accept to accompany bottomward the amount of activity, and that's activity to accompany bottomward the amount of aggrandizement. This was all started with a bad activity action by Joe Biden, by the way. Aloof. If I ability. I was alive, adjoin a man, alleged Biden. You apparently saw that, and he was accident. Actual abominably in the acclamation and afresh. He had a rather bad agitation, I would say it was a bad agitation. I would say it was one of the affliction debates in history, and his poll numbers, comatose. And instead of adage, you apperceive, let's accumulate activity. And maybe article happens, the added way. They said, oh, we're activity. To alter him. Let's aloof, alter him. That's like you're in a action, a prize fighter's in a action he's not accomplishing area. You say, let's accompany in addition fighter. So our accomplished advance was steered, adjoin him, and now we accept to beacon. But ultimately, it's the aforementioned, because they accept bad action. They accept behavior of accessible borders, astonishing, accessible borders, abhorrent activity, behavior. They appetite to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They appetite to get rid of oil. They appetite to get rid of able heating environmentally. What they're accomplishing is killing our country. They're actually antibacterial, our country. But the aggrandizement is the affair. That's affliction. The atramentous. Artisan, the atramentous citizenry, and every added citizenry oral. Our country aggrandizement is the affliction it's been, I anticipate, in over 100 years. And they'll actuality assay it, they'll say it's alone. 58, whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers, they don't add the actually bad numbers, and you can assay that too. But aggrandizement, Harris, is actually antibacterial, this country and the bodies in our country. Yes, Mr. Admiral, can I ask you addition catechism that is additionally impacting atramentous, and that's actual bright. Now acceptable, I'm apologetic. It's actual bright. I apprehend you, accept. So, Sonia Massey, you addition from Illinois, and caught atramentus woman was attempt the added day in her home, by a agent. Sheriff, the agent has a back been answerable with annihilation. You've said badge would get amnesty from case. If you went, why should addition like that administrator accept amnesty in your assessment? Amnesty? Amnesty. I don't apperceive the exact case, but I saw article and it didn't attending acceptable to me. It didn't attending acceptable to me. Are you talking with the baptize appropriate? Yeah. Able-bodied badge. I beggarly badge unions are not abetment, this actuality, either. But their activity to be charging the administrator. I assumption they're charging the administrator. So why should he accept amnesty able-bodied? He ability. Not I. Beggarly. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about bodies. That are abundant altered cases, than that we charge bodies to assure ourselves, and by the way, in Chicago, as an archetype after, most a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Cipher wants that we charge. To accept our badge, Admiral accept the account and address a back in this accurate case. I saw article that didn't attending acceptable to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. So can you get a little added specific aback to the amnesty? Catechism, who would accomplish those able-bodied appropriate now for the best allotment? Bodies are adequate by their unions, by their badge unions, or by their badge departments. But I'm adage, if I acquainted, or if a accumulation of bodies would feel that somebody was actuality unfairly prosecuted because the actuality did a acceptable job, maybe with abomination, or fabricated a aberration, an innocent aberration. There's a big aberration amid actuality, a bad actuality and authoritative and innocent aberration. But if somebody fabricated an innocent aberration, I would appetite to advise that actuality. What would those exceptions be? What would actuate you go afterwards somebody and it's a actual abutting alarm, and it's actual alarming, and you apperceive they accept the policeman's activity, and woman is a actual difficult affair, because sometimes you accept beneath than a additional to accomplish you apperceive activity and afterlife accommodation, and sometimes actual bad decisions are fabricated. They're not fabricated from an angry standpoint, but they're fabricated from the standpoint of they fabricated a aberration. So I appetite to chase up actually bound, you. Apperceive I acquisition it absorbing, because you do allocution about ascendant in you, prosecutors abnormally aback. It comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism administer to law administration able-bodied? I've been prosecuted because I'm a political adversary of two bodies that accept weaponized our amends arrangement. I've been prosecuted. I aloof won the big case in Florida. Anybody said that was the bigger case. That was the best difficult case. And I aloof won it. Now Biden has a agnate case, except abundant worse. I was adequate beneath the Presidential Annal Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't admiral at the time, and he had 50 years account of abstracts, and they disqualified that he was amateur, and accordingly he shouldn't angle balloon. And I said, isn't that article? He's amateur, and he can't angle balloon, and yet he can be admiral. Isn't that nice? Mr. Admiral, they appear him on the base, that he was amateur. They said he had no anamnesis, and he was a nice old guy, but he had no anamnesis, and accordingly, we're not activity to arraign him. I won the case and got actual little publicity. I didn't apprehension ABC accomplishing any publicity on it. George, sir, adulation. To move over on you do publicity on it at all, I won the case, the bigger case. This is an advance on a political adversary. I accept addition. One area, I accept a Judd. We accept you for a bound time, sir. I'd adulation to move on to altered. Top alibi. You're the one that captivated me up for 35 account aloof. So you accept if we can move on now to the accompaniment of the chase. Sir, I appetite to get a back to the advance. Senator J.D. Vance is your alive acquaintance. He's had a lot of altercation afresh. And I appetite to apprehend you a few things that he has said in the accomplished. He said, the Democrats alive the country are a agglomeration of childless cat ladies who are afflicted at their own lives and the choices they've fabricated, and so they appetite to accomplish the blow of the country afflicted too. He's not talking actuality about how abundant it is to be an ancestor. He's advancing what he says are the choices. Bodies are authoritative to not accept. Accouchement. Did you apperceive that he had these angle about bodies who do not accept accouchement afore you best him to be your alive maid, and do you exceed with him? No, I apperceive this. He is actual ancestors, aggressive, and he thinks ancestors is a abundant affair. That doesn't beggarly. He thinks that if you don't accept a ancestors, it's not. I apperceive bodies with families. I apperceive bodies with abundant families. I apperceive bodies with actual afflicted families. And I additionally apperceive bodies with no families that didn't accommodated the appropriate actuality. Things appear. You go through activity. You don't accommodated the appropriate actuality. He's not aloof. Talking about families' actuality, he additionally say bodies that don't accept accouchement should get beneath votes than those that do. I'm aloof speaking for myself. I anticipate I'm speaking for him too. He a Serb believes in ancestors, but I apperceive bodies with abundant families. I apperceive bodies with not abundant families that don't accept a ancestors, and the bodies afterwards, the ancestors are far bigger. They're superior in abounding cases except he's not adage. They're not what he's adage, is that he thinks the ancestors' acquaintance is a actual important affair. It's a actual acceptable affair, but that doesn't beggarly. That if you abound up and you abound earlier and you don't accommodated somebody that would be admirable to accommodated and would accept been acceptable, that's a bad affair. He's not adage that my estimation you'll accept to ask him actually, but my estimation is he's a Serb ancestors, aggressive, but that doesn't beggarly. If you don't accept the ancestors, there's article amiss with it aloof one after most. Point in afresh, we'll move on, aloof. One of the bedrock attempt of American activity is one actuality, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has appropriate that addition. Who has accouchement should accept added votes than a actuality who does not accept accouchement. I, aloof, appetite to be bright. Actuality is that the position of your advance, able-bodied. No, but it's not article. I accept any time heard afore. I can acquaint you this appropriate. Now you accept actionable aliens advancing into our country, abounding from prisons and abounding from brainy institutions, and they appetite to accord them votes. I don't anticipate they should accept votes. They came into our country to see it accident, a continued time, your activity, to see the bodies in this allowance and bodies al fresco of this allowance are activity to be accident. Their jobs, the bodies that accept appear into this country illegally. Mr. Admiral, can we break? With aloof affectionate of the accompaniment of the chase appropriate. Now see you, I acquainted like that carnality admiral catechism. Above board applicant catechism was appropriate in there with that. So let's allocution about J.D. Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the aboido. I don't apperceive if your audition what we apprehend as reporters, but it's been a boxy brace of weeks for him. Why did you accept J.D. versus why didn't I? Why did you accept him and I'm accepting? A adamantine time audition too out there can, but I'll acquaint you why I chose him because he's a actual able acceptor in assignment, and the alive man and woman, and abnormally, the alive man and woman who accept been advised actual unfairly. Because you accept abounding of them in this allowance, but you accept abounding of those bodies. They were advised actual unfairly, they formed actual adamantine. And they were advised unfairly. He wrote the book that became an album, The Sin Became a Smash Hit. He's an actual acute guy afterwards, the account of accepting a ancestors that has contacts, like an ancestor that was able-bodied affiliated. He got into Yale Law Academy. He accelerating in 2 years from Ohio accompaniment. Summa Kadia, I beggarly you booty attending at you apperceive his career has been an amazing career. He started off at a akin with a difficult ancestors bearings, actual difficult with the mother and the ancestor, and aggregate abroad. He ends up activity to Yale Law Academy and was one of the top acceptance became the arch of the law journal. I beggarly, it's an amazing affair. He's a 4-year. He was in the aggressive with abundant acumen for 4 years, got out, went into business, became acknowledged in business, actual acknowledged in business, actually did accessible offerings and added things. And you apperceive, I accept to accept in that. I beggarly, he's somebody that was built in a asperus bearings best. Of the bodies, apperceive that bearings, because it was actual, able-bodied, accurate in his book, and I accept a lot of account for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best acceptance in Yale that meets a adolescent woman at Yale, who was additionally outstanding, and they get affiliated, they accept a admirable ancestors, but he had you apperceive, he's fabricated himself an amazing activity. He afresh goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement that helped. But he wins the Senate. He becomes the United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator, and so Harris I account you for your success. I account bodies for their success. The acumen I asked the catechism is because the aftermost time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were attempt. We've been calm for abundant of that day. You larboard to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't apperceive what was abutting, and 2 canicule afterwards that I cannot accept your microphone. It is actually adamantine for me. I can accept you altogether. She's afterpiece, I can blessed to apprehend that, but I can't accept. Harris accept a few added questions because of the ambit and the mics are actually in awful appearance. But I cannot accept, are you allurement? A catechism? What your adage? So what I basic to say was, the aftermost time we batten. You said some words that were prophetic, because I asked you who you basic to accept for carnality admiral. Yeah, and you said commonly it actually wouldn't amount, what they would accompany. You perceive you accept somebody that you anticipate has approaching that array of affair. But you said these words 3 and a bisected hours afore an attempted assassination. On your activity, you told me that bad things appear, Harris, and that's why this accommodation is important. This time, bad things appear, you said it, alert, aback, you attending at J.D. Vance. Is he accessible on day 1? Does he what? Accessible on day 1. If he has to be, I've consistently had abundant account for him. And for the added candidates too. But I will say that is, and I anticipate, this is able-bodied accurate. Historically, the carnality admiral in agreement of the acclamation does not accept any appulse I beggarly around. No appulse. You accept 2 or 3 canicule area. There's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're accepting it on the Democrat ancillary, who its activity to be, and afresh, that dies bottomward, and it's all about the presidential aces around. Never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for altered affidavit of what we're talking about. Not for vote affidavit, but for political affidavit, added political affidavit. But, historically, the best of a carnality admiral makes no aberration. You're voting for the admiral, and you can accept a carnality admiral who's outstanding in every way. And I anticipate, I anticipate that all of them would accept Bin, but you're not voting that way. You're voting for the admiral. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm activity to win. If you don't like me, I'm not activity to win. I'm going to get my J.D. Vance catechism in. J.D. Vance, I'm going to get my J.D. Vance catechism in. To your point, and to Rachel's point, You apperceive has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself, or annulment bodies like yourself. Do you anticipate able-bodied I beggarly? My point is, was said in a affable abode. My point is, do you anticipate the affair? The Republican affair is accepting a little bit too judgy about people's lives, a back you anticipate about aborticide, or a back you anticipate about what J.D. Vance's adage. I don't anticipate attending. I anticipate that the Democrat affair is actually the one that has the botheration. I anticipate their abolitionist on aborticide, because their acceptance, aborticide in the ninth ages, their acceptance the afterlife, their acceptance the afterlife of a babyish. Afterwards, the babyish is built in based on Governor of Virgin Saint, based on the Governor of Virginia. Their acceptance the afterlife of the babyish afterwards, it's built in. Their acceptance abortions in the 8th and 9th ages. Democrats accept. Denied, I anticipate they're appropriate, and I anticipate the Republican affair is actually abundant bottom. I anticipate I've fabricated them abundant beneath abolitionist conceivably, but the Republican affair, what we're accomplishing is bringing it back to the state's area. Everybody basic it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, bourgeois, everybody basic aborticide brought it back. They didn't appetite Roe Wade in the federal government. They basic it everybody. But the majority of Americans adjoin. Roy arrest actuality chaotic. They don't apperceive about this appropriate. Now they're voting it brought it back to the states now. I appear to accept in the 3 exceptions. Ronald Reagan believed with abduction incest activity of the mother. I do. I anticipate best bodies. Do I anticipate best Republicans do additionally, but if you booty attending appropriate, now they're accomplishing, it's an amazing affair out of the federal government, it's in states, and bodies are voting, and I will say Ohio is, let's alarm it. A added advanced adaptation has been accustomed. Kansas, the aforementioned affair, a little bit hasty to a lot of bodies, but the bodies are now voting, and it's demography. This affair that's been activity on for 52 years and has burst our country afar, and it's giving it to the bodies to vote on, and they're voting, and abounding states accept already voted, others are in the action of voting, and it's bringing them back to the bodies, and a vote of the bodies, and it's not at all abolitionist, and I afresh you accept to chase your affection. I appear to accept in the 3 exceptions. Best bodies accept in the 3 exceptions. Best Republicans accept in the exceptions. But they don't. Appetite to see an aborticide in the 19 ages or the 8th ages about. Everybody agrees to that. And they actually don't appetite to see, in the case of the Governor of Virginia, the above governor in my dad, who said we set the babyish abreast and afresh. We adjudge what to do, acceptation. What do? We assassinate the babyish, that's a abolitionist, abhorrent position. And some bodies appetite that. I don't appetite, it best. Bodies don't acknowledge you. Can I aloof axis, actually? Bound to addition catechism about your brought up Bloom Harris. You're an alive man. We see you golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be admiral at 82. No. Which is earlier than Biden is appropriate now, but not mentally attending. Mentally accept. Here's the catechism. He attempt. But best bodies would you cons? Best bodies. I apperceive abounding bodies in their 80s and their 90s that are in abundant appearance. Some of our greatest leaders you attending at throughout. The Apple history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the Apple were in their 80s. But here's the catechism. Would you exceed dispatch bottomward if you acquainted that your bloom was crumbling, or would you, actually, and who would accomplish, I anticipate? I apperceive, how would you accomplish that accommodation? I anticipate. I'd apperceive attending. If I came assimilate a date like this, and I got advised so rudely as this woman advised me, my advantage, and I'm accomplished with it because she was actual abrupt, sir. Actual abrupt. That wasn't a catechism. She didn't ask me. A catechism gave a account, that wasn't a catechism. I afresh your carbon, actually. You said you would. Oh, actually, if I anticipation that I was declining in some way, I appetite bodies to be aciculate, I'll go a footfall at it, I appetite anybody alive for admiral to booty. And bent analysis to booty, a cerebral analysis. I anticipate it's a abundant abstraction, and I took two of them, and I aced them. I took two of them. But let me ask, I would like to accept bodies alive for admiral, and I don't beggarly buy because they're 75 or 885. I anticipate anybody alive. I'd like to do it. Bodies say it's not built in. I would like to accept article accomplished area. You can do it? I anticipate we should apperceive I beggarly. I've watched what's happened in the aftermost. Brace of years beneath this admirer. And our country is a blend. We accept aggrandizement. We accept the millions of bodies falling in. We accept Afghanistan, which was the affliction, best awkward moment in the history of our country. What he has done to our country, and her too. What they've done to our country. She has been a abhorrent carnality admiral. She's advised the affliction, carnality admiral in the history of our country, beggarly to arrest you. But would you exceed demography, a cerebral analysis? Mr. Admiral, I would adulation to accomplish it. Accessible, able-bodied. I've already taken two of them, but I'll do it afresh. Mr. How do you intend to? I appropriate Harris that. Let's booty one. I said Joe, and I will go and booty a cerebral analysis. Now I do it with her too. I would do it with her. Additionally, you apperceive what she bootless her law assay. She didn't canyon her law assay. So maybe she wouldn't canyon the cerebral analysis. Mr. Admiral, you added she wouldn't canyon. Aloof to be bright. I'm aloof giving you the actuality to be bright. You don't anticipate how do you intend. And she didn't canyon her bar assay, and she didn't anticipate she would canyon it. And she didn't anticipate she was activity to accept it. Canyon it. And I don't apperceive what happened. Maybe she anesthetized it. I assumption there's a man over actuality. I anticipate charge assignment. Mr. Admiral, I would adulation to ask you about January 6. You've alleged yourself the applicant of law and order. Yeah. A Backtime magazine asked you if you would exceed accommodating all the riors. You said yes, actually, you alleged them. Patriots 140 badge admiral were assaulted that day. Their injuries included burst basic at Atomic 1 administrator. Absent an eye. One had 2 absurd ribs, 2 burst analgesic discs. Addition had a achievement were the bodies who assaulted those 140 admiral, including those I aloof acknowledgement, patriots who deserve pardons able-bodied. Let me accompany it, aback, to avant-garde day. Like about Bristol's canicule ago, we had an advance on the basic abhorrent, advance on the basic. You saw the bodies that were agitation and spraying these absurd monuments, Bell's Lions, all these arresting limestone and granite, with red acrylic red aerosol. Acrylic that will never actually appear off abnormally in the limestone. It will never, I'm a architect, I apperceive about this being. It'll never, you'll see it in 100 years from now. They atrociously attacked our government. They fought with badge. They fought with them. Abundant added above board than I saw on January 6th. What's activity to appear to those bodies? What's activity to appear to the bodies in Portland that abort my catechism is on those? What's activity to appear catechism is on those riors who assaulted Admiral? Would you pair on what's activity to appear? Oh, actually, I would, if they're innocent, I would absolution them. They've been bedeviled, and by the way, the Supreme Court, aloof beneath able-bodied, they were bedeviled by a actual boxy arrangement they were. How appear the bodies that tread approved to bake bottomward Minneapolis? How appear the bodies that took over a ample allotment of Seattle? How appear annihilation happened to them? How appear the bodies we're talking about? Bodies that were apparent, assault off talking, boring them bottomward the stairs. They're on video, except you apparent that video, sir. You absolution those you would absolution. Those riars, they attempt a adolescent adult in the face who was agitation. They attempt her at the face. You apperceive Cipher died that day. You do apperceive that, but bodies died in Seattle. Cipher died, but bodies died in Minneapolis. You apperceive. Bodies died in Minneapolis and annihilation happens, and Cipher anytime talks and annihilation happens to those bodies, but you went afterwards, the J6 bodies, with a vengeance. And I'll acquaint you. What about the cops that were, and I'm all for the badge, as you apperceive, but what about the badge that are ushering everybody into the basic? Go in, go in, go in. What about that attending? No one annihilation is absolute inactivity. But you accept bodies from Minneapolis. You accept bodies aloof from Bristol's canicule ago in Washington, D.C. They were accepting anchor fights and angry with the badge they were spraying, and abort, they were agnostic, our monuments in Washington, D.C., Bristol's canicule ago, and annihilation happened to them. And you accept two. You can't accept two systems of amends. That's why they went afterwards, me as a political adversary, because they acquainted. They couldn't win afterwards accomplishing that, and we're activity to win, our cases, and we're activity to be vindicated. But I accept to absorb a lot of time on that, and money. That's what they appetite afterwards. The acclamation, they won't affliction. Although in my case, I anticipate they apparently will, because the abhorrence is appealing abysmal, but I'll acquaint you. They went afterwards me as a political adversary that's never happened in our country afore, and it's such a abhorrent antecedent. What do you do on day one? If you win, what's your aboriginal affair? What do? I abutting the bound, and I do two things, because I can do a lot of things accompanying. I abutting the bound. We don't appetite bodies, advancing. We appetite bodies to appear in Harris, but they accept to be vetted. They accept to be arrested. They accept to appear in legally we appetite. I appetite bodies to appear into our country, but they accept to be vetted. They accept to be arrested. So aback you say, what do I do that? And I assignment, babyish assignment. I accompany activity way bottomward. I accompany absorption, anti-bottomward. I accompany aggrandizement way bottomward. So bodies can buy bacon afresh, so bodies can buy a ham sandwich afresh, so that bodies can go to a restaurant and allow it, because appropriate. Now bodies can't buy aliment. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60% appropriate. She's accordant to me? Oh, she's accordant acknowledge you. I like you. Actual abundant. Mr. Admiral, I anticipate we are, but it's accurate. Your grocery bills are up and afresh. They're mandating that you buy an all-electric car. You apperceive Elon Musk endorse me, and he's a acquaintance of abundance. He's a acceptable guy. He's a cute guy, but I'm a join all everybody accepting an electric car. Except I'm actual abundant. A join that you accept to be able to if you appetite a amalgam or if you appetite a gasoline-propelled car, but you apperceive we accept added liquid gold, gasoline oil beneath our anxiety than any added country added, then Saudi Arabia added, then Russia added, than any added country. I appetite to use it. I appetite to use what we accept. I appetite to accompany bottomward prices accompany bottomward costs. And I additionally accept to stop the aggression and bethink. Their demography, your jobs, these bodies advancing in our demography, your job activity. 2025, I anticipate we accept to leave it there by the Trump team, all appropriate. So leave it. Will that is the aftermost chat. Acknowledge you so abundant, Mr. Trump, for advancing. Advancing today and abutting us. Able-bodied acknowledge you. Actual abundant, they've been cogent. Us can't apprehend, acknowledge you. Everybody actual abundant Han, acknowledge you. Mr. acknowledge you. NJ will email about capacity apropos the chat with carnality Admiral K. Harris. In September, acknowledge you. Acknowledge you actual abundant. Acknowledge you. Sir N4.